so today we have a very interesting conversation to bring to you, and this is something that could either make or break our marriage. We're just putting it all on the line here today. And what we want to talk about is how to lead when you're married to a strong woman from a man's perspective and also from a female's perspective, because it's one of the questions we've been given a lot in the last little while. We just had our Thai National Summit, and we had separated the men and women into groups, and it came up in both groups, right? The men were asking, how do I lead when my wife is strong? And the women were asking, how do I get my husband to lead when I'm strong? And so it's something that we want to bring up. We're not going to be going into deep dive marriage counseling, but just a few principles that might help us navigate strong relationships.
Yeah.
You seem to have some experience here.
Some experience dealing with stronger ladies. It's funny because that was brought up a long time ago when I was probably in my 20s, and the same question came up, and the person's response was just be stronger. So I think I'm like stronger. What does that look like? Do I like louder, start quoting scripture where you have to submit, and and then being strong? I mean, what is the opposite of that? Being, I mean, passive, not articulating things, and so I don't think having a strong woman in the ministry is a bad thing.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's probably better.
And maybe we should define what we mean by strong, right?
Yeah.
So by strong, we don't mean somebody who's arrogant, who's unsubmissive, somebody who has an agenda, who's belligerent, that's
On both sides.
a heart issue. Yeah. So we're not talking about if you've got like a toxic thing going on in your relationships, because our leaders don't. But it's just that how do we lead effectively when we feel like sometimes the women have more ideas, maybe not more ideas, but they just put more pressure on you. Like, you got to do this now, you got to do that now, and what about this problem now? It's like the push is coming from behind, which is not terrible, but how do we come into agreement? Because that is actually one of our tenets, right? Agreement is the place of power. Right. And so we have to come into agreement when we're working together.
So when you were at your conference and the ladies' side of it, did they actually say I want my man to be like this? Like, can they articulate what a strong man leader looks like?
I don't think there was a specific articulation that happened at that point, but I know what women have been saying to me. Right. And a lot of times they feel like they're the ones that are coming up with the ideas. Right. The ones that are saying, here's our next step, right? So even things with regards to finances or plans for the family, or even ideas for things that they need to do and what they need to work on and improve. So those tend to be kind of the issues, is they kind of feel like they're carrying the weight of coming up with the ideas and moving the momentum forward, which part of it is, if it's in you, it's not a problem. The problem is, how do you actually learn how to work together so that you're both communicating and moving in the same direction? Yeah.
I mean, I always think about the tenets, right? That we lead through relationship and not control. I don't think I've ever wanted to control you. No. And I've kind of felt like my responsibility is to let you be you, right? And that expression is fast-paced, ideas coming from everywhere, And I don't see that I see that as one style of leading, right? I don't necessarily have to control every aspect of the marriage and what goes on. But one thing we do have to commit to is communication and coming to an agreement. For me, sometimes talking is actually processing and not actually agreement. And I think sometimes you take it as we talked about it, let's do it. It's like, and you volunteered me for 5 things. Yeah. So one thing that we've really learned, probably as men, just being around the ministry, is learning to listen. And that's a good leadership quality to have. And so that takes a lot of effort sometimes, because he's all like, okay, yeah. So what do you think? I'm like, I'm still processing.
Yeah. So the point of today's podcast isn't to give you, like I said, all of the answers. This is not going to solve your marriage problems, but this is just giving us some ideas of maybe some different ways that we can look at it, because sometimes we get familiar with our patterns and we feel like there's no way we're going to break out of this, but there's actually things that we could do to come into more agreement in our marriages. And so one of the first things that we'd like to encourage, especially for men, is you have to learn to keep casting vision in your family. One of the reasons why I think women come up with ideas and they're always communicating the next steps is because they feel like men don't have the ideas or they don't have the next steps. And it's not that they don't have them. It's just that men tend to keep their ideas here in their head and in their heart, right? Yeah. It's percolating. Whereas every idea we have, it just like comes out of our mouth so naturally. So one of the keys, I think, to coming into agreement is men, you have to learn how to talk. You have to learn how to keep communicating vision. Here's where I feel like we need to go as a family. Here's what I want to see happen with our finances. Here's how I want to see our leadership team developed. Here's some of the obstacles that I feel like we need to kind of remove. You have to learn how to keep talking in the same way that it is our responsibility to cast vision to those that we lead in the ministry. Yeah. As a man, it is your responsibility to cast vision to your family. That means you have to talk about it. You have to communicate it, right? And not just once a year. It's like the whole joke, right? You only have to say I love you once and it's good for the rest of your life. It's the same like that with your vision. You actually have to speak about it and cast it every single day.
Yeah, so leading through vision is always a good big picture thing, right?
Communicating.
Communicating.
'Cause I think that tends to be a frustration I hear from a lot of the ladies is that my guys don't talk. And the guys are like, I did. I talk. I talk. But as men, it's a thing that you have to learn to do. And it's one of the things that I really appreciate about, for example, I appreciate it about you and I appreciate it about a lot of other leaders in our lives is that they are very comfortable with conversation. They've learned how to not just sit there silently and let the women speak. They've learned how to give input and their ideas and their opinions and things like that.
Yeah, I think communication's a big one. I think that goes to be if you can speak so people will listen and listen so people will speak, I think that's a good thing to aim for.
Good. So then my advice for men was to learn to communicate vision. What would be your advice to the strong women?
I think I'm going to ask for patience, honestly, because I think, you think really quickly, I have to process, and it's not like I don't care, it's just I'm still thinking about it, and I'm not going to just like this. I think we're kind of wired differently in that way, but if you ask for my opinion, and then you don't listen for my opinion, it's kind of well, why even tell you anything? So am I going to shut down every time I come up with an idea, or... The other joke is you probably know 95% of what I'm going to say anyway, right? Because we've lived together for a while. So, but it's kind of nice to be my ideas do matter, I don't feel like I'm shut down, but sometimes guys may not talk because they just don't feel like they're listened to. And if they do say something, it's just yeah. Okay, on to the next thing, right? I'll just bowl you over and I'll just run with it. So, that'd be just a caution maybe.
Yeah.
And there are responsibilities for men, to cast vision, to communicate, to... One thing I told the guys, for you, you've had a great home life, right? And your dad has kind of set a standard of what men looks like. That's your reference point for what a man should look like and act. And so that is kind of where you get your confidence, your identity, times you felt like you couldn't do it, he said something and you're I totally feel empowered, and you grew into it, right? And so now I'm kind of, I'm not your dad obviously, and we're different people obviously, but he set a high bar for the people in your life, so you see leadership, that is the expression you see and you're used to, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of good qualities, and I think a lot of them are character qualities that you've seen and you've been around, and that's the stuff that you kind of okay, when I see a leader or I see a man, that's kind of what I envision. And if I don't match up to that maybe in a degree, I still have a lot of maturing to do, but...
we all do.
Well, we all do. But, that's a good thing, if you have a daughter, you want to set a good example for your daughter so that the losers don't come around.
Yeah, so then that's good advice for us, right? For women, is we got to learn to be patient, give our men space to think, space to respond. Yeah. Because what's waiting gonna harm? Yeah. It's not. It's just a lot of times we have 18 things on the go, and so that's what we're thinking about instead of thinking about the fact that we need to slow down, stop, and hear what's on our husband's heart. one of the things too that came up in that session, which I really appreciated, Pastor Leanne said it, and it was actually something that God had spoke to me about too, because I remember before we had gotten married, when we were dating, you were kind of all over the place with what you felt like God was calling you to do. You didn't have a
Right.
clear direction. And so I remember when we were dating, it was like I felt like Moses the intercessor, like every time I got off the phone with you, I'd be on my knees praying. And I wasn't praying for God to make you my husband. I was praying for God to help you figure out his call for your life,
Right.
And that's what Leanne said too. She said that the Lord convicted her one day and told her that she needed to spend time praying for her husband, and God actually gave her a time frame, like an hour a day, right? And she said, praying in tongues counts, right?
Yeah.
It's not a prayer of complaint, but it's just praying the will of God, the word of God. And I think for us women, it is not our job to make our men the leader we perceive him to be, right? We have an idea of what leadership looks like, and it's actually not our job to make our husbands conform to our idea of
Right.
how his leadership should look.
Right.
It is our responsibility to see his leadership in the way that he is leading and respond to that. And I think when we have a heart of intercession for our husbands, right? When we're praying for them, it does something to really soften your heart and to really make you more open and more sensitive and more gentle and more kind. It's amazing. You pray and the fruits of the Holy Spirit come out and you're just like
Who knew that would happen?
a nicer person. Yeah. And so I think the issue isn't that our men aren't leading a lot of times. Ladies, I'm going to be really honest, okay? They're just not leading the way we want them to. That's the problem, Truth bomb, mic drop. Because we want them to lead the way we would lead. And that's not our job, right? So the issue is we have to allow our men to lead the way that God has created them to lead. Matthew leads very gently, but he's also very confrontational, right? And it used to make my skin crawl. Like I would get so uncomfortable when he would deal with people, and it would be so like confrontational and upfront, and I'm like, giving him like the kill signal behind him. I'm like, it's so uncomfortable. It's so awkward. But he's actually a more effective leader because of his ability to lead like that. If he led like me, if he was such a softie, like a lot of times people think I'm abrasive, but I actually have a very soft heart, guys. And I don't like it when people feel sad. And so I have a hard time sometimes. I've learned how to.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I had a hard time confronting people, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that you weren't leading. I just didn't like it. I wanted you to lead like me.
Right.
So as women, back off, right? Let our men lead the way that God's created them to lead. And yeah.
I mean, encouragement goes a long way,
Yes.
Stuff like that.
So how can women encourage their husbands? Like, what's the best thing? I mean, everybody's different, but
Yeah.
what does encouragement look like?
I mean, appreciation is probably a good thing. And I mean, I think you already kind of put your finger on it, right? I have to look at you to see who you are and how God's made you. And then I lead according to that. So it'd be like, I'm just asking for the same thing, right? And there's definitely, you see things closer in my life that I'm immature in and I have to work on. And that's fine. But
Vice versa, yeah. We both-
it's
yeah.
basically, you just can't think from your perspective. It'd be kind of like me just saying, well, Becky, my mom makes spaghetti this way. Why can't you be more like my mom? I probably get slapped. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, it kind of works the same way, right? But that's my reference of what it looks like. But I don't think that'd be wise or healthy to put that onto you, right? So,
Yeah, and I think in all things, I mean, this probably is more suited towards a younger audience because
Yeah.
our leaders, especially our seasoned leaders, have amazing marriages. They're such stellar examples. And so I would end with that.
yeah.
Is that as young people, I'm putting myself in there even though I'm only in the middle age bracket soon, but as young people, we have lots of great examples to look up to,
Yeah.
And just by observing, how do we talk to each other? How do we treat each other? How do we honor each other? How do we value each other? And then you can ask questions. And I love it when people ask questions and I'm able to encourage. I think it's such a great thing to do. And one of the things that you can do too, if you feel like maybe there's some things that you don't know, like if you're comfortable with asking somebody, well, if that's a problem, then you need to develop deeper relationships. But the second thing that you can do, which is sometimes I do myself too, like when I'm kind of like stuck and I'm in a hurry and I don't have anybody to talk to in the moment, is I ask myself, what advice would I give someone else in my shoes, right? And it just kind of puts the perspective out there. So yeah, God's given us great people, great leaders.
Yeah.
Being strong is not a problem.
No.
Because our guys are strong too. It's just learning how to come into agreement always in how we lead.
Yeah.
And keep the communication lines open, communicate vision, and
Listen.
at the end of the day, give your wife a back massage
Or 200 baht.
to go for a massage. Yeah, it's awesome. God bless.
Yeah.